I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning to talk to you about this great ministry. As Chris said, my name is Jason. I will have the other Show Me families all stand up, but I will not introduce all the children because it would take half my time here. So if you are a Show Me Christian Youth Home parent or child, please stand up. Some of these folks you might not recognize. Jeff and Laura Eads have been with Show Me for actually a little bit longer than we have. And they just moved down to our unit here recently. And as the new house is being built and we move into the new house, they are going to be moving into ours. But for now, we are renting a house just, I can't say down the block because it's farm country, just right down the road, and from some of our neighbors. So it was a great opportunity that we kind of jumped on to get them down to help out with the school and all those different things. So we're excited to have them down and get to know them a little bit as well, because being an hour and a half away, we haven't had that opportunity very much. So we want to kind of talk to you guys a little bit today about what Show Me is all about. To kind of give you just a quick overview, I'll try to be quicker than I was in first service. I was informed by my wife that I went way long the first service, so we'll see if we can go a little bit quicker the second one, and talk about what we're all about as a ministry, and then dive into some scripture as well to kind of see what are some of the reasons that we do the things that we do. The first thing that I want to see here is some stories. So if you go to the next slide here, we have a young man named Stephen, who we got the opportunity to know a little bit whenever I was the preaching minister in Carman, Missouri. At that point, Bart and Sarah Hins, some house parents that were a little bit further away from that area, we were considering hiring him as our youth minister, so they came to visit the church with their Show Me family. So we got to encounter Stephen a little bit there. A very nice young man who we've gotten to know over the years, but some of Stephen's story is that he came to Show Me under false pretenses. He was adopted from overseas, and his adopted brother actually made a false accusation against him. He made an accusation that he had acted inappropriately in a way that caused the parents to decide to place him at a place like Show Me. Well, a kid coming here under false pretenses, of course, it wasn't until a lot later on that the brother came out and said, yes, I did lie. Stephen didn't do this horrible thing that I said he did. I'm sure it didn't sit well with Stephen. There was a lot of issues there. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of hurt. But Stephen made the best of his time while he was with us. He has since graduated and has led a very successful career that we'll kind of see a little bit later on. But one of the things that Stephen has made very clear in his testimony is that he wouldn't trade his time at Show Me, even though he went there because of a lie. He wouldn't trade his time at Show Me for anything. Because if it wasn't for Show Me, he wouldn't have been introduced to the Lord of his life. If it wasn't for Show Me, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to be introduced to the career that he now loves. And if it wasn't for you guys and your continued support for this ministry, we wouldn't have the things that we need to be able to take care of these kids. Show Me feels that we are compelled by Christ to rescue and restore young lives. That is what we're all about. And as a former minister who is very sold, obviously, on the Great Commission, that is something that really spoke to me as we were considering looking at Show Me as a potential place of employment. Because Matthew chapter 28 is really our marching orders. That's what we're all about as Christians. And so seeing this ministry with this type of a vision and the track record that it had, this is just, to me, a natural extension of what the mission of the church is. It just narrows the focus a little bit to the children. We feel that we are compelled by Christ to rescue and restore young lives. Now, obviously, we are not the ones doing the rescuing and restoring. We're providing the atmosphere possible for that to happen, but Jesus is the one that does that. God is the one who works in these kids' life. We want to make sure, though, that we are providing them with a pivot in their story. Each of these kids comes to Show Me with a different background. Maybe there was some abuse or neglect going on at home, and that's kind of been our tagline for a long time, but that's not necessarily the only reason a kid might come to Show Me. Kids might come to Show Me because of issues at home with just some behavior issues. Maybe they're coming to Show Me because of substance abuse issues by the parents. Maybe they're coming to Show Me because a parent might be undergoing treatment, life-saving treatment for a disease. Or maybe there's even been death or incarceration as the reason a kid might come to Show Me. With all the different reasons that they come to Show Me, one thing is going to remain the same, and that is on the next slide, the pivot point of our ministry, is we believe that the best chance these kids can have is a Christ-centered home and a family with a mom and a dad in the home who are loving for them and caring for them so that they can learn to have healthy, strong bonds with a mother and a father figure. Now, there's lots of great ways to raise children. There are single mothers out there that are doing a fantastic job. There are single dads out there that you couldn't ask for a better parent. There's grandparents out there that are doing a wonderful job raising their grandkids. But what we do is we step in a time where maybe grandma and grandpa aren't in a financial or a physical area where they can take care of the grandkids. Or maybe an aunt and an uncle are struggling to raise these kids that were kind of dumped on them for various reasons, and they need someone to step in and help them out. That is what we're all about at Show Me. And we're all about providing them with the things necessary for them to have success in the future and also a thriving relationship with Christ. And so Faith Around the Table is kind of a slogan that our director Chad uses quite a bit. And that's what we do. We gather around the table quite regularly for things like devotions to talk about issues maybe that are going on in the household so that the kids can see that this faith that we have is real and it is important. So we want them to have that pivot point in their story that's going to be necessary to start a new chapter. But we also understand that they need something a little bit deeper than just a loving mother and a father in a household, because these kids have been broken and they've been hurt. And they've been left in the wake of a lot of damaging behaviors. And that is why we want to make sure these kids are getting regular counseling. All of our kids see licensed professional counselors at least on a monthly basis, if not a little bit more. And we have those licensed professional counselors actually on staff and contracted out with Show Me who know about our program and who buy into our program and are able to talk with these kids about some of the hurtful and painful things that they've been through so that they can encounter healing and so that they can develop new meaning for their future as well. But we don't just stop there. We want to make sure these kids have the benefits that any other kid might have. We do have the private school option at our main unit in Lamont, and we have that option down here at the Drysdale Farm unit as well, where these kids are able to be involved in academics that is at a very, very high level. They're able to participate in the arts. They're able to participate in athletics. And it's great to see how well these kids have done. Most of our kids were able to make the honor roll this last year. In fact, all the kids at the Drysdale Farm unit made honor roll for the fourth quarter, and most of them made a honor roll for the entire year. And that is just a wonderful thing to see that, because it's a very rigorous material that they're going through. These kids have an opportunity to use the arts as well. If you come to our annual event in September, you'll start to see some of the paintings these kids have done, some of the woodworking projects these kids have done that they have out for auction, and just the talent that these kids are able to cultivate in our program. And athletically as well, we're able to go to a state competition and these kids compete and sometimes even win at the state level. And it's fantastic to see these things that are opportunities for these kids to grow, that are opportunities for them to build skills that they're going to need in the future. The next program that I want to talk about real quick, and then we have a short video about it, is our Leadership U program. Now, many of you are going to really enjoy this program, because what this program is it uses horses and dogs to teach these kids leadership skills. Now, unfortunately for some of these kids, the only leadership that they have been exposed to in the past is the get behind and push type leadership. Now, a lot of you in here own horses. You've maybe seen a horse, ridden a horse, done those things. Is it a good idea to get behind and push if you want a horse to move? It's not going to work out very well for you. You're either going to get a chest full of hoof, or you're going to slip and fall into what just came out of the end of that horse, right? It's not going to work out well for you. Well, unfortunately, that is how these kids have been treated in the past. They've had the get behind and push model of leadership that doesn't work very well, and it's going to cause them to buck, it's going to cause them to kick, and it's going to cause some dissension between the one doing the pushing and the one doing the kicking, right? What we need instead is these kids to learn what true leadership looks like. And true leadership is you get in front of and you lead with a calm voice. You lead with a firmness, and you lead from a place of respect and strength. And that's what Journey learned whenever she came to our program. Go ahead and show her video. Why would God? Go ahead, that's great. Clap. It's a compelling story. And she came in asking the question, why would God, a God who cares about me, allow me to go through the things that I went through? And now, and she actually came in very hostile to Christianity. And it wasn't too long after she came to our program that she was baptized into Jesus. And it wasn't too long after that before she really started to develop those leadership skills that she's now able to use to have an impact on others. So that's what this program can do, and that's what our program as a whole can do. The next program they want to talk about is our Path to Purpose program. You know, if you're a child in the state system, oftentimes you're 17 years old, you're 18 years old, they say, see you later, I hope you have a good life. And that's it. You're ejected from the state system and never to really be messed with or heard from or supported again unless you go back to some of those old support systems that caused you to have to be into state custody in the first place. At Show Me, we know that is a recipe for disaster. And so what we have developed is an opportunity for these kids to say, hey, I'm going to come back to Show Me if I have any needs. If I have an emergency need and need access to emergency funds, if I need help finding a job, if I need help getting set up an apartment, help with my first car, all those different things the Path to Purpose program provides for them so that they can avoid returning to those old support systems that was the reason they came to Show Me in the first place. So they can use us as a support system, because not a one of us, when we left high school, ever thought that we were going to be able to make it without at least some support from mom or dad. We always called back at least to ask for some advice, right? These kids are no different, and we want them to make sure that they have an opportunity to come back and talk to us. And so what they do is while they're with us, they're going to learn. They're going to work hard. They're going to figure out how to do basic car repairs, basic household repairs. They're going to learn how to handle their finances through a Financial Peace University type course. They're going to learn how to apply for a job, how to dress for a job. They're going to learn all these things that are going to set them up for success in their life in the hopes that they don't have to return to us a whole lot. But if they do, we know that they've put the work in ahead of time and they truly do need the help that we can provide for them. Stephen is the bottom center picture. Oh, go back real quick. He was the young man that we talked about that had this false accusation made against him. He now works in the Air Force. And of course, our main unit in Lamont is right down from Whiteman Air Force Base. And we actually have a few guys that are in the reserves who work at Show Me as well. And so that obviously had a big part in Stephen's career decision. But Stephen's in the Air Force. He flies the drones. I know it's the Air Force, so they have some fancy name for the drones. They don't actually just call them drones. But he gets to fly drones, and he gets to travel all around the world and do some really cool stuff. And he really has a solid career path and a solid footing with his relationship with Jesus Christ because of Show Me. Even though it was all a lie to begin, it truly did have an impact on his life. And you guys have an opportunity to be a hero in the story. Now you can go to the next slide. You can be a hero in these kids' stories. You have the opportunity to become involved, to get invested. And first off, I know so many of you are already. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do for us. Thank you for being involved in these kids' life. But for those of you who might not know much about the ministry, who might be seeking to get involved, there are some ways that you can do that by becoming a prayer partner. Of course, that is our first line of defense. Pray for these kids. Pray for our house parents. They're struggling through a lot of different things. So please, please, please pray for us. You can sign up for our prayer partner list where they send you a letter, or you can actually go to our Facebook page, and we've created a Facebook page where you can become a prayer partner through that and get up-to-the-minute prayer needs from the organization. Volunteer. We take all different types of groups at our campus and at Lamont. If you want to weed eat fence, come to the Drysdale Farm Unit. If you want to maybe do some other things, great youth group trips, great adult trips, to go and volunteer at our main unit. That's really kind of where we encourage people to go, because if you come down here, you're going to be doing two things. You're going to be painting or you're going to be weed eating. And then, sometimes youth groups don't want to do all that stuff, right? But that is a great opportunity to go, to be on our main campus, to get involved, to see these kids in action, because you're going to be working right alongside of them, and to really see what our ministry looks like from the inside out. So volunteering is a great way to get involved and to be a hero in their story. The next one is refer. We have some material on our table in the small kitchen here that is going to give you some information on how to refer kids to Show Me. I've already had some people from First Service asking questions about that. There's pamphlets out there that you can take and we might be running a little bit low. If we are, we'll make sure we bring some back because we do attend here, so we'll be here next week, right? So we'll drop them off so that you can take them. It's a hard conversation to start sometimes whenever you're talking to kids or to people about Show Me. But this provides an opportunity for you to hand them something, say something like, hey, I know you guys are struggling a little bit. Have you considered a ministry like Show Me? Hand them that pamphlet. It answers a ton of questions about our ministry, what it's like, what you can expect on your end. And it's just a great way to kind of open that door to that conversation. Another way that you can invest in these kids' lives is through donating. We take money, we take canned goods, we take clothing. We do anything that you use in your household, we use a little bit more of it, right? Because, we have 10 plus people. So we use a little bit more of it. And so anything that you can think of that you might go through, that is what we would use. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out online at showmehelpingkids.com to find out maybe a more detailed needs list. If you sign up for our newsletter, which you can do with the slip of paper that was passed out, you can find out a little bit more detail of a needs list. Or if you want to sign up to become a booster, become a prayer partner, which I think is on the next slide there. Or neighbor is what I meant to say. Become a neighbor. We've renamed our monthly partners to our monthly neighbors group, and you'll kind of see why a little bit here in a few minutes when we dive into the scripture. But you can sign up to get more information, to learn how to place a child, anything that you need to get information for or that you want to sign up for. Grab this, tear it off, drop it in the basket on the table over here in the small kitchen. Again, there's tons of information out there for you. There's some bookmarks, all those different things that you can take out there. We know that Stephen, in the next slide, has a pretty happy ending, and his story is still being written. But it wasn't going to be possible if it wasn't for you guys. We are 100% supported by churches and individuals like you. We don't take a dime of state funding. We don't take a dime of federal funding. And that's so that we can make sure that at the core of our message is a family centered around Jesus Christ, and no one can tell us otherwise. We want to be able to continue to preach Jesus Christ. And so these stories are still being written. And it's with your support that we're able to do that, your prayer support, your financial support, your donations that we're able to do that. So thank you for everything that you do. And be on lookout for more stories to come, because we do have some great things happening. As I said, we are building a new home at the Drysdale Farm Unit. Really excited about that. We're also hiring at the Drysdale Farm Unit. So if you are interested in maybe teaching in our Christian school, there is a great opportunity at the Drysdale Farm Unit for this next school year. If you are interested in doing relief, and what relief is one day a week we're able to kind of get a break from the kids, and the kids are able to get a break from us and go on relief. And we have another couple that's there who have the opportunity to pour into these kids as well. It's like the cool aunt and uncle that they get to go hang out with every once in a while, right? And it provides an opportunity, again, for us to kind of focus in on our biological family, for them to have other adults pouring into their lives as well. We are hiring a relief couple to be down at our unit that probably would also help out with the school, with the farm, things like that. So if that's something that appeals to you, please call our main unit, because we are hiring for that as well. We also are building new homes at Lamont. There's a lot of great things happening up there. A great way to keep track of all the things that are happening is, again, to sign up for our newsletter, which we encourage you guys to definitely do. And the final slide up there again is thank you very much, because we're so excited to be part of this church, so excited to be part of a church who really steps out and supports our ministry. I mean, many of you have been out to the unit. Many of you have dropped off donations, brought them here for us. We couldn't ask for a better home church, and we couldn't ask for a better supporting church as well. So thank you very much. Talking about neighbors as we kind of transition to our sermon time, Luke chapter 10, verse 25 is where we're going to be at. And I have some neighborly advice for you guys. What makes a good neighbor in your opinion? Many people nowadays would answer high fences, right? High fences make good neighbors. I found out living in Mennonite country where we're at over in Barnett, that's not true. What makes a good neighbor is when they come to your door with fresh homemade bread. Fresh out of the oven, it's still warm. You spread the butter on there, it melts. It's just beautiful. That is a good neighbor right there. And they really do. They support us so very much. All the different homes in the community there, but especially our neighbors, the Ristlers. They're just fantastic, a group of people. And we actually feel bad because you know the Mennonite community, you know how independent they are, you know how self-sufficient they are. They hardly ever ask for any help on anything, and we can't think of anything that we might be able to do to really help them out in very many ways, right? Because they have everything down to a system. We'd go over there and probably throw a kink in it or something, right? And so we were really excited this last year whenever they came over to our home and had a need. We didn't really know it was a need at first, because what it was is Alvin was with one of his boys that had shot a nice-sized buck, okay? We're talking a nice-sized 8-pointer with a big wide rack, and he had it on the back of the flatbed, and he brought it over, and we're thinking, great, he's just kind of showing off, the buck that he shot. He was really excited about it. It was bigger than the one I shot. Ha, he's 8. That happens. And Alvin leans over and says, "Could you guys take a picture for us?" There we go! Finally, there's something that we can do to help them out. There's a need that they have that we can meet. And so Danielle runs in, and we grab the camera, we take a picture of the boy and his trophy that they, I'm sure, probably ate completely by now. And we are going to Walmart, we're developing the photos for them, bringing them back. And there we go. We finally were able to do something for our neighbors who meet so many needs for us, and we hardly ever do anything for them. But we do get to do a little bit more than that. I grew up in Amish country, not Mennonite country, so this was weird for me, but they're sending emails through us sometimes, and we're updating their fax machine and all those different things. So that's pretty cool that we do get the opportunity to meet the needs that they don't have, because of course they don't have the electronics that we have. But that's what makes a good neighbor, is just that desire to meet the need, and no one does that better than the folks that live around us. What makes a good neighbor? That question was asked in Luke chapter 10, and that's where we're going to be, in verse 25. And it reads this way: "And a lawyer stood up and put him," of course being Jesus, "to the test, saying, 'Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?'" Starts off as a salvation question, right? Not a neighbor question. "And he said to him, 'What is written in the law? How does it read to you?' And he answered, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself.' And he said to him, 'You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live.' But wishing to justify himself, he said to Jesus, 'And who is my neighbor?'" Now this man of the law, this student of the law, this lawyer, was seeking to get Jesus to slip up. He was trying to kind of get him into a trap so that he would say something that they could latch onto and discredit him by. But Jesus had a great tactic for this. He turned the question back on the lawyer. Now, parents, take notes, okay? Because your kids are going to ask you questions. Questions they don't need to ask you. Questions they have all the information that they already need in order to answer it themselves. If you ask them a question in return and get them to think about it, not only does it develop their brain a little bit, but they get so annoyed by getting a question to their question that they eventually stop asking you nearly as many questions, right? When you have 9 kids, multiply that, right? It's a little bit crazy with all the questions. But do that. So Jesus asked the question, well, what does it say in Scripture? And the guy gives a great answer. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Perfect. He knocked it out of the park. This is like the gold star. He knew exactly what to say. Jesus kind of went a little bit further. He said, hey, you know what you're talking about. Now, let's go ahead and put it into practice. Saying this guy probably might not have been putting it into practice so far. And that would be a great ending, a great call to action, conclusion to the sermon. Everyone goes home and is happy, right? Wrong, because this guy's a lawyer and he keeps talking. So he asks, hey, who is my neighbor? He wasn't actually genuinely concerned about who his neighbor was. He was concerned about justifying himself because he'd been living his life in such a way that he wanted to see if Jesus would do what he wanted to do and narrow the scope of who the neighbor was, right? Jesus kind of goes the opposite way. In verse 30 through 33, Jesus replied and said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among the robbers, and they stripped him and beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. And by chance a priest was going down on that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise a Levite also, and when he came to that place, saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan who was on a journey came upon him, and when he saw him, he felt compassion. What we're going to look at real quick here is not the guys that beat the guy and put him in the ditch, not the robbers. Not the priest and the Levite who probably should have done their religious duty and helped the guy out, right? But we're going to look at the needs of the guy laying in the ditch. The guy who's been beaten, bloodied, left for dead. He had some needs there, didn't he? The first need that he had was the man had a need for compassion, for someone to show him compassion. I can imagine the hope that was welling up within this guy as he's laying in the ditch, fearing for his life, thinking he was probably going to be dying soon, hoping the robbers don't come back to finish the job. I can imagine the hope that's welling up in him as he sees a priest and a Levite walking towards him. Now, if anyone's going to help me, these are the guys to do it, right? These are the religious leaders. These are the ones that are supposed to be most concerned about me, to have the most compassion, to have the most empathy. And then how disheartening would it be to see them walk right by? You know, the kids that show me often struggle because of one thing. They all come with different backgrounds. They all come with different hurts, different stories. But one thing is generally common. They've been wounded, or they lack a bond with one or both of their biological parents. They've been wounded by, or they lack a bond with, one or both of their biological parents. The ones that should have loved them, the ones that should have cared for them, the ones that should have been there for them weren't. And you know, they've had a lot of people stepping in to try to fill that void. Grandparents did it, aunts and uncles did it, parents at Show Me did it, men at church did it. And those do, to a point, they start to fill up that void a little bit, but no one can truly fill that void left there by your dad or by your mom. Only Jesus can heal that. So these kids are coming with that type of a wound. The people that should have been looking after them, should have been protecting them, weren't. And Jesus took a foreigner in this story. An enemy. Someone who the Jews didn't get along with, the Samaritan, and made him the hero of the story. And what it shows us is that a neighbor is more than just those who are closest to us. You know, we have an opportunity with these kids to be a neighbor, to help fill that void, to step in and become a father figure, to become a mother figure to them, to make sure that they are sped up the process of healing a little bit by having someone who's caring for them and investing in them. And you know what? It takes more than just the house dad and the house mom. Again, we have relief parents that are pouring into these kids, other parents in the ministry who are pouring into these kids, administrators that are pouring into these kids. And what's great to see is when people at the churches that we go to and the church that we attend pour into these kids. Because that's who it takes. I mean, it truly does take a village to be able to raise these kids. These kids have a need for compassion, just like this man had a need for compassion. Someone to look upon him and say, you know what? I'm not just going to walk on by. I'm going to do something about it. See, it's easier to have compassion for those who are within our sphere of influence. But as we see next, Jesus extends that sphere a little bit further than just those who are closest to us. And he also extends the expectation of what we are to do with those neighbors. In verse 34, it reads, the man has compassion on him, the Samaritan man has compassion on him. And in verse 34, and he came to him and bandaged up his wounds, pouring oil and wine on them, and he put them on his own beast and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The man had need for care. Now, we're not talking about the emotion here. I'm not saying I care for you. It's I'm going to care for you. It's an action. That's the type of care that we're talking about here. We don't want to get caught too much up in the emotion because that emotion runs out. That compassion might sometimes run out when you truly start to get messy. What we need to do is we need to care for. And this sometimes is where we fall short. This is where we fall short. You know, we've heard this phrase a lot. And it's not necessarily a bad phrase, but it's the phrase, I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers. Good phrase. As long as we are truly keeping that person in our thoughts and our prayers, right? But imagine someone walking into a hospital and they've broken their arm, and I found out one of the EADS kids did this here recently, to where their hand is just like dangling, right? And it's just nothing is attached. And you fill out the paperwork, or someone else fills it out for you because, the floppy arm thing. And they say to you, hey, hope your arm gets better. Thank you for filling this paperwork. Have a good day. And they usher you out of the hospital. What's going on, right? You didn't do anything to fix it. I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers. Or what if someone's drowning and you're a lifeguard and they're waving their arms at you, please come save me, and you're sitting there with your nice tan and your life preserver. And you say, I'll pray for you. And you continue to work on your tan. It's not going to help, right? It takes action. And I'm not trying to downgrade prayer because, again, that's our first line of defense at Show Me. Prayer is so very important. But some action is really good too. Helping these people, rescuing them. And what this Samaritan did is he took this man, he picked him up out of the ditch, and he stuck him on his own beast of burden, took him into town, made sure he was taken care of. That's what we need to be doing. Now, warning, you do this, you're going to get messy. I guarantee this Samaritan had blood on his clothes, had blood on his hands, had snot on him from this guy's face, everything you can think of, right? He got messy. Good. Because that is what it takes to truly meet needs. If you are meeting needs in the lives of those around you, you will get messy. We are proud to be part of a church who's willing to get messy. Who's willing to sacrifice of themselves to give to us as our ministry. Who's willing to sacrifice of themselves to go overseas and meet needs. We're proud to be a part of a church that does that. We're proud to call 9th Street home. Now, some of you are out there and maybe you haven't got plugged in yet. Maybe you haven't found a place to serve yet. Please don't wait any longer. Get plugged in. Figure out how you can meet needs. Figure out how you can be a neighbor to the person sitting a few rows in front of you, a few rows behind you. To the kid who's running around the gymnasium like a crazy person who just needs someone to love on him. Find those needs. Meet them. The kids that Show Me need care. They need someone to say, to go beyond compassion, to go one step further, and to pick them up, and to dust them off, to clean up their wounds, to bandage them, and to make sure they have what they need. Who in your life is crying out for your care? Who in your life is crying out for your involvement? Maybe it's a situation or a person that you haven't even encountered yet. Will you be willing to meet those needs when the time comes? In verse 35, we read this. It says, on the next day, the man took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper and said, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I return, I will repay for you. The last need that the guy had was he